As you've heard this morning from several panels, the opportunity for changing gender perspectives in the workplace really does lie with this group. So this is why I'm really, really excited that Discover Financial Services is once again teaming up with Womenetics in our third year to present this Advancing Aspirations Global Scholarship Essay Contest. This partnership recognizes that young people, and especially young women, are defining and actually directing, challenging, and shaping the most important issues and opportunities in the business and in the workplace at this point in time. This year's contest received 230 applications from over 170 universities in 36 states. And the essay topics focused on issues important to both Discover and Womenetics by asking students to explore obstacles and solutions to creating a truly balanced workplace for the 21st century. The essays covered topics that coincide with many of the panel discussions today. Women's perceived lack of confidence, shifting gender roles, and juggling competing demands. And here are 5 finalists, and I'll introduce them to you. Samantha Harold is a junior at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, where she is majoring in supply chain management and international business. She gained experience in both of those areas as an intern at FairShare, a nonprofit in London, England, that distributes edible food waste to the UK's needy population. Samantha's scholarship essay focused on strategies companies can implement to prevent employee burnout among women through creation of supportive environments. Next, we have Anna Haran, who was born and raised in Texas and currently attends University of Texas at Austin. She has a strong interest in government and law and is currently studying finance, political communication, and public policy. She serves on the Finance Committee at UT's Honors Business Association and is an active member of the Texas Democratic Party. Her scholarship entry focused on cultivating confidence and career focus in school-age girls through the Ladies of Leadership campaign, which Anna created and is implementing. Next, we have Susan Liu, who is a freshman studying international development at Wesleyan University in Connecticut with an interest in economics, government, and women's issues. She's currently the community manager for Giveology. It's a non-government organization that provides education to children in developing regions, and also serves as the director of public relations for the USA chapter of the International Youth Council, focused on engaging youth with UN initiatives. In her entry, Susan described how social gender norms can be deconstructed to empower women's confidence and ambition. Next, we have Sarah Miller, a sophomore at Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, originally from San Diego. She is majoring in aerospace engineering, and in addition to her coursework, Sarah is working on several research projects, one that involves cratering record for inner solar system planets, and another in collaboration with Stony Brook University's Cognitive Psychology Lab. Her essay discussed the importance of female role models to bridge the confidence gap between men and women. And our final scholarship finalist is Erin Trumbull, who is majoring in anthropology and history at Florida State University. She's also minoring in English, business, and international affairs. Erin is the president of FSU's American Red Cross affiliate and on the leadership council of the Phi Eta Sigma Honor Society. Last summer, she joined Growth International Volunteer Excursions, or GIVE, program in Nicaragua and hopes to expand her involvement with GIVE in Thailand. In her essay, Erin detailed both short-term and long-term solutions to increase women's confidence with a focus on sociological factors. I would like to have a round of applause to welcome our incredibly accomplished scholarship panel. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the ideas that you've tackled in your essays. And first, Samantha, tell us what you found in your research regarding employee burnout and any strategies that you've devised for keeping more women engaged in the leadership pipeline.
Okay. Well, I first wanted to begin by personally thanking Discover for your financial generosity, because that of course brings people to take part in these opportunities, but honestly, being in a room like this with this kind of intellectual capital is more valuable than any sort of financial gift. So I sincerely thank you for not just your gift, but also this opportunity as well. And this whole experience has been so encouraging, because it really, what people have been talking about, I keep thinking, I see that in my paper. And when I've heard people speak about being mothers and workers and living in a world of competing demands, which is a world that women live in. I know that Catalyst has come to the conclusion that men are starting to help out more, and I think that's fabulous. But the fact still remains that we kind of, our lives are a little bit more of a juggling act still. And it's no wonder that, our corporate aspirations sometimes burn out a little too early before we're able to really evoke some positive change. So the strategy that my paper implemented was creating a community of practice in the workplace. And you may be wondering what a community of practice is. I'm looking at one. It is a group of people that all come together with a common goal, and they meet and they discuss and they challenge one another. And I am 20 years old, and I am very young. I have very minimal experience, and I'm talking to CEOs. And I have to say, it's very intimidating sometimes. But the more I do it, I know that the more confident I will become, and the more sense of personal efficacy I will have. And if we can foster that in a workplace environment, if we can create that community to where it's no big deal to see your CEO in the cafeteria, as you were describing to me earlier, that's amazing. And it is in no way small, even though it's kind of a small adjustment that a company can make. So that is kind of in a nutshell what my paper is about.
Thank you. Anna, you wrote about the confidence gap, the idea that women are less self-assured than men in your essay, but also focused on the importance of women's relationships. Can you tell us a little more about those findings in the campaign you've developed?
Sure, thank you so much. And thank you all for being here today. Samantha was saying, it's so great to be in this environment, and we are all acting like sponges, just absorbing everything that's going on in this room. So thank you again. The campaign that I actually developed is called Ladies of Leadership. And I chose to develop this campaign because I was taught at a young age that leadership is not a position, but rather a mindset. So my campaign focuses on encouraging young women to get involved in extracurricular activities like clubs, organizations, and sports, and taking on these leadership positions and being comfortable with exercising those skills. And my campaign also focuses on connecting these younger women with leaders like yourselves, really making it okay to go out and search for mentors. I think that is a mistake that some of us might make. It's that we see asking for advice as a sign of vulnerability, and that's not true. It's okay to ask for help when you need it. And I was talking to some of those at the reception last night, and I was telling them how my parents have taught me, learn from your mistakes, learn from your mistakes. We hear our teachers say it, our mentors say, learn from your mistakes. But what I've learned over the years, it's a whole lot easier to learn from other people's mistakes. So, just really take advice and be okay with asking for help, because it can help in the long run and it helps you accelerate faster. So that's what my campaign focuses on. And really being okay with building that network of women around you and feeling okay asking for them to help you rise up and take on these challenges that you face.
Thank you very much, Anna. Susan, you also examined the confidence gap. Can you tell us what you found about gender roles and how they impact women's success in business?
Sure. So I guess one thing that really caught my eye about the Atlantic article that was the basis for the prompt I feel like it almost felt like it was suggested that the confidence gap that women have, it's almost something that's innate. But when you really look at how the media portrays female leaders and powerful women, it almost makes you think, is it really any wonder that women are more reluctant to take on these leadership roles and these roles that are considered more predominantly male? And I think it's kind of a chicken and egg situation where it's like, well, how do you go about it? Do you go about making the woman more confident or changing the environment? And I think both are important, but my paper does focus on changing the environment a bit more and trying to fight against those gender biases and those gender roles that are so ingrained in our society. Because I think that if you do focus on making women more confident, you're definitely going to move more towards progress. But I think if we're constantly in an environment where at some level we're not really encouraging female leadership, it's almost discouraged to an extent when powerful women are treated by the media and how they're talked about. It's going to be equality at some point if that's always going to be there. So I think one thing I mentioned was, I guess, raising awareness of the fact that our attitudes aren't completely equal. I think people aren't overtly sexist, and people think I'm not sexist. I don't discriminate whatsoever. But it's there was the Howard versus Heidi study, for example. They showed the exact same resume to students. They only changed the first name from Howard to Heidi. When it was Howard, they said, wow, he seems really awesome. I'd love to work with him. When it was Heidi, they said, she seems like she's kind of out for herself. I don't really know if I want to work with someone like this. And I think it's important to still keep that in mind. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the Ban Bossy campaign. Sheryl Sandberg was involved with that. I loved it, but it wasn't that well received. And I think a lot of people misinterpreted the message thinking like, oh, we're going to treat women differently, but why? Like, they're not discriminated against. They're not called bossy more often than guys when they try to take leadership roles. And I think that was lost, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons it didn't do so well, and I think that's something we need to keep in mind when we're moving forward and trying to make progress. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sarah, your essay focused on the on role models as being key to girls' confidence. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And first, thank you so much to Discover for the financial support, as Samantha mentioned, and thank you for all of you for your support. It feels amazing to sit here and to have the opportunity to be heard. So it's really awesome. So I wrote on the confidence gap, and the first thing that I thought of when I read the article was, I've seen this, it's not the same. I think the confidence gap is different for every woman. I think, there's no standard breadth. I think I've met some women who I believe think that they are 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and I'm so amazed by them. And I've also met women who really do everything within reason to stay within their own comfort zones. So I think really, the question isn't how do we instill brilliance and ingenuity in women, because we already have that. I mean, we're born with it. I think the question is, how do we create an environment where our confidence is nurtured? We have the opportunity to grow and to feel that we can make, permanent changes. So I used role models as an example, and I used them in a somewhat non-traditional sense of the word. I talked about bringing in role models from history because, growing up, I loved history. Which is weird because I'm studying engineering, but I really did love history, and I learned about the father of modern, calculus, the father of modern medicine. I learned about all these amazing figures that I really looked up to, but I can count the female figures on one hand, that I learned about from my textbooks. And I never learned about Vera Rubin. I never learned about Nettie Stevens until I actually really actively searched for women scientists in history. And I think you shouldn't have to do that. I think, students should be able to learn about these amazing women without having to actively go and search because they notice the discrepancy. So, I talked about historical role models, and I also talked about modern role models. I think I'm a person that really likes evidence. I like a lot of facts before I make a decision, and I think if I have these women all throughout time that I've seen that they are successful, I think that really would help me. It would bolster my confidence. I think, one analogy that I'd like to borrow from one of my professors at Tech, he says that when people see things and they want that thing and they reach for it in different ways. There's some people, the traditional way that you reach for something is ready, aim, fire. For some people, and it very rarely works out that way. For some people, it's ready, aim, aim, aim. That's like me. And for other people, it's fire, ready, aim. So, I think I think having more evidence, more role models, precedent to these young people as they're growing up and in school, I think that would really help. So that's what my essay focused on.
Thank you, Sarah. Erin, you proposed some short-term and long-term solutions or recommendations for growing girls' confidence. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Absolutely. And like my fellow finalists, I'd really like to thank Discover. I'd also like to thank every single person in this room because you are all an inspiration. And being able to talk to you and meet you has just inspired me so much in just the past couple days. So one of the main, I kind of divided my paper into two main sections. What we can do in the short term for women who are already in business and in that environment, and what we can do to help our young girls kind of fill this confidence gap so that it almost doesn't exist anymore. And for the women who are already in business, who are, feeling unconfident and, dreading going into those boardroom meetings and thinking that they have to say something but that they don't have anything worth saying. There's this actually really great method called power posing. And probably a lot of people have heard of it, but I found it really interesting, is that if, you stand in a room, and this is my favorite, it's the Wonder Woman power pose. You stand in a room, you have your feet about shoulder width apart, you chin up, your chest out, and your hands on your hips. And you just kind of stand there for a couple minutes, and, you think positive thoughts. And it actually psychologically and hormonally improves your confidence. Your testosterone confidence levels go up, your cortisol levels go down. It's a stress hormone. And it actually really helps improve your confidence, which, I thought, looking in the mirror and saying, "You're ready, you can do this," I just thought that was something that people did because, yeah, that should help. But it actually, it actually chemically helps you. And so I thought that was really interesting. But I think more important than bridging the confidence gap in the business place is kind of eliminating the culture that fosters the confidence gap. And Chimamanda Adichie is a woman I really admire. She's an author, and she's given a couple of TED Talks, and in one of her TED Talks she says, "We teach girls to shrink themselves." And that needs to stop. Because if we foster this culture in which girls shrink themselves, they'll grow into women who shrink themselves, who have less confidence, who aren't as willing to raise their hand in a business environment. And I think, a couple ways we can do that is, encouraging girls to play like boys do. Eliminating that phrase, "boys will be boys," because that just kind of suggests that boys can, run around and do what they like, whereas girls should be more reserved and quiet. It has that implication. And I think the most dangerous thing and the biggest impediment for women in growing their confidence is that unconscious bias that we've been hearing about all day. Because teachers will, if boys interrupt them, they won't say anything, they'll address what the boys say, but if girls interrupt them, they'll say, "Don't interrupt, I'm talking right now. Raise your hand after I'm done." And that's bad, and those teachers, they're not sexist. A lot of them are likely women themselves. It's that unconscious bias that's really hurting our society, and I think that we can change. I really do, and I think that being aware that this bias exists is really the first step. And so changing that, changing our attitudes, that's what my second half of my paper was about.
It's very inspiring for me to see young women who clearly are not shrinking themselves. So thank you all for being here. In the last couple of minutes we have, if you wouldn't mind, maybe starting with Erin at the end, telling us as you are looking forward to starting your careers, what are some of your career aspirations, and what do you expect from your future employers?
Well, I'm actually not certain of my career aspirations right now. I'm kind of trying to keep an open mind, and actually the women in this room is my perspectives even further. I've talked to so many women and they say, "Oh, you're studying anthropology. You know what you can do with that." Take my degree in a direction that I hadn't even considered, and I think that's really wonderful. But what I would expect for future employers would just be, I don't want anyone to have a bias towards me because I'm a woman. I don't want anyone to pander me because I'm a woman. I want to be treated equally, and I want employers that recognize that as much as I respect them.
So, I love the fact that you are so open to your career goals. We were talking about this earlier. Since I was, knee high, I've known exactly what I want to do. And sometimes that comes off as narrow-minded, and I really hope that I do not come off as narrow-minded, but I would really like to explore space. That's what I love. That's what I'm passionate about. Next semester, I'll be interning with NASA at the Marshall Space Flight Center. And I don't think I've ever been more excited about anything. That's, really what I want to do. I want to explore space, and I think I've always said, my ultimate career goal is, and this goes a little more general, it's just to be inspirational. I want to design something that someone looks at and says, wow, that's what I want to do. Because that's what happened to me. I looked at things like the space shuttle, the Mars rover, the Saturn V rocket, and I said, that's what I want to do. And then I looked at the people who designed them. So I really hope that, someday I can be that person for people. And as far as what I expect from my future employers, it's really just to be given opportunities. I don't expect to be agreed with all the time, but I do expect to be heard, to be listened to. So that's what I'd like to do.
Okay, so I'm a freshman in college, and it's a bit scary to think about. I haven't even declared a major. I'm thinking in terms of econ, and I am very much interested in development, I guess just based on the exposure I've had through NGOs I've worked with. But funny story, when I was writing this essay, I actually had my first paid job over the summer. And this is at a way smaller level than what we're talking about. It was a job at Taco Bell. And I noticed that there was actually a girl that we were working with that had worked there a bit longer than other people had. She always got really good reviews, considered one of the best employers. My parents always said, don't talk to people about how much they make. That's a terrible idea, but I did anyway. And I was like, I think it's ridiculous that you make the same as me because you're so much better at doing this. Have you ever asked for a raise? And she was like, no. And then I encouraged her to, and she did, and she got it. And I feel like writing this paper was kind of, because I was writing this paper while I was doing this job, and that kind of changed my mindset about things because I normally am not the type of person to do that. A month later, I asked for a raise too, and my boss gave it to me, which I would have never been the type to do that. Even my mom was like, "You can't ask for a raise. You've been working here for a month," and I was like, "But I'm doing really well." And so yeah, I think definitely just for future employers, I'm just gonna try my best to not shortchange myself, which is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. They underestimate their own abilities, and yeah.
Well, that was amazing. I am interested in government, politics, and law as well as business. So my major is finance with an investment banking track. So I hope to look into investment banking or management consulting in the near future. But my passion in politics, I really hope that kicks in later on. I plan to attend either law school or business school and possibly run for office. We'll see how that goes. But what I'm really inspired by is that yes, the U.S. Senate has a record 20% of, the female makeup, but I don't think we should stop at 20%. It needs to reach 50% eventually. So it's important to me because I see I currently work at the Texas State Capitol, and it's amazing seeing how many lives these policymakers are changing through legislation, and how passionate they are about helping their constituents. And that's something that I would love to pursue in the future. But what I would look for in a future employer is don't be afraid to give praise. And I say that because I've experienced it. In the classroom, if we're working in a group, there's a boy, not going to say his name, but he tended to slack off a little bit. So when he picked up the pace and did work, the teacher looked at him and said, "Great job." And I kind of, sat and smiled, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, that's expected from you, Anna. Like, doing work, it's expected from you, because I've always been a really go-getter." And, I wasn't sure if I should have taken that as a compliment or not, but I was thinking this expectation needs to be eliminated. Don't be afraid to give praise. Don't be afraid to say good job, because it's really encouraging. And if we eliminate these stereotypes and these assumptions, I feel like it would help a lot in the future.
Hi. I love all the career aspirations of every single person on this stage, because we all are here for a common purpose, but we all have so many different paths that we want to take. Me, for instance, I really love supply chain management. I love it. I recently had an interview with Hanes brand, and they're awesome. I love that they can talk about panties and be serious. And the interview was about economic order quantities and variabilities in safety stock, and I was like, ooh, oh my gosh. So anything the idea of taking my education and using it is incredibly exciting to me, because it does happen, more often than not, that a lot of people, especially women, I feel like they go to school, they get a degree, and they do something else. So one thing that I really want from myself is to pursue this thing that I have spent 4 years working for, and also to work for an employer that has an environment that is inclusive, like we've been talking about all morning, and that has an environment that allows us all to speak candidly. I was talking to Paul Friedman from WBEZ, yes, last night, and he said, "Oh, so is it like your family?" And I said, "Yes, in a way. You know how you can talk to your brother in a way, and you can say whatever you want to him, and he's not going to hit you for it, hopefully." That is something that is really nice. I feel like a lot of companies like to say, speak your mind, we're listening. But when it happens, they get a slap on the wrist. I want a company that won't slap me on the wrist. And, I'm looking out on all the companies here, and I've been able to network and talk to these different people who represent these companies. And I've been keeping my eye out for all of you, because oh my gosh, the way that you all conduct yourselves is really encouraging. So thank you all.
Thank you. Now for the main event, I'd like to ask Elizabeth to come up and announce our winner.
Lisa, great job. And I am so personally proud of all of you who are here with us today. And I'm going to extend this excitement for just a couple of minutes, because there are so many people who have asked about this process. But I do want to do a special reach out to 3 people who are here today. We have 2 alums in the room who are former scholarship finalists, and I want to recognize them today. Sarah Frank, will you stand up and be recognized? Sarah has continued to come back to our programs in Chicago and was named a scholarship finalist in Atlanta, wasn't it? Yes, absolutely. And where is Megan Matt? Megan, stand up and say hello to everybody. We are always so happy that you stay in such close touch with us, and we expect all of you here today to do the same. Many of you have asked about the process, because I think the process is really important to explain. This program was developed 5 years ago at Womenetics, and to date we have recognized over 35 winners with over 1,000 applicants from around the United States. It is a very serious application, as they all will attest. It's a 2,500 word essay, and it is not for the weak of heart. I will tell you that I have been asked numerous times to read some of the essays, to grade them, and I've read a couple and I've said I'm not doing any more because these women are too smart and too serious for me. They are way over my head. We have had the wonderful participation with Discover here for 4 years to support this initiative in the scholarship fund. So each one of the finalists will receive $2,500 and the finalist will receive $5,000. Pretty exciting. In addition to that, as Elisa mentioned, the finalist will receive a round-trip ticket on United Airlines. This year, the competition has continued to be, the finalist has continued to be selected by former U.S. Ambassador Milan Vivir. Milan was involved with us back in 2010 when we launched our first Global Women's Initiative and continues to select the finalist. All of the process is done with a blind rubric. Each one of the finalists has been read, their essay has been read by 4 separate people. And it is a very strict application, and the process is also handled internally. We give all of the credit to Stephanie Proft, who is here somewhere in the room. Stephanie, stand up. I want to make sure that you get recognized for your adoring care about this process, and I know the award winners are really excited about that. So, without any further ado, all right, Elisa, it's up to you.
And our winner is Samantha Harold.
I just have to say that I am floored and wow, I've never won anything like this before. So thank you. Thank you to Discover. Thank you to everybody who read my paper and our papers. And I'm just so excited. And I have to say, though, I got to read everybody's essays. I encourage you to do so as well if you haven't been able to do it, because every single one of the finalists' essays were phenomenal. So I really encourage you to read all of them, and thank you all so much.